We are now on the part 5 of the introduction to the phylum Arthropoda. This presentation will talk about the complete metamorphosis and its features, and we are going to compare that with the features of the incomplete metamorphosis. We are also going to talk about the types of the insect larvae as well as the types of the insect pupae. We are going to begin our discussion with the complete type of metamorphosis. Examples of insects that exhibit complete metamorphosis are the flies and the fleas. The diagram shows the life cycle of the flies. It shows the presence of the developmental stages that includes the egg, the larvae, the pupa, and the adult. Most insects undergo complete metamorphosis over the course of the lifetime. Each stage of the life cycle consists of the egg, the larva, the pupa, and the adult that is marked by a distinctly different appearance. Another insect of veterinary significance that exhibit a complete metamorphosis is the fleas. So again, for the life cycle of the fleas, it also exhibits 4 life stages, and that includes the eggs, the larvae, the pupa, and the adult. For the complete type of metamorphosis, when we are going to describe the life cycle of the complete type of metamorphosis, again, there are 4 stages. Now, the egg, the larva, the pupa, and the adult. The adult stages are totally different from the immature stages morphologically. In other insects, such as the butterfly, the pupa is also known as the chrysalis. Entomologists call insects that undergo complete metamorphosis as holometabolous. That is from the word holo, meaning total. The larvae of the holometabolous insects bear no resemblance to their adult counterparts. In the holometabolous type of life cycle, the young ones is called the larvae. The larvae is the immature stage of the insect. So some insect orders have unique names for their larval forms. Example, for the butterfly in the moth, the larvae are called caterpillars. For the flies, the larvae are called maggots. For the beetle, the larvae are called grubs. The diagram shows the blue fly with its plainly colored maggot. Again, the maggot is the larvae of the flies. The diagram shows the typical life cycle of the fly, showing a complete type of metamorphosis or a holometabolous type of life cycle. The larvae grow and molt usually multiple times. So as you can see here, the larvae has 3 stages. The first larval stage after the egg. We also have the second larval stage and the third larval stage before the emergence of the pupa. Another property or another feature of the complete metamorphosis in terms of its life cycle is that the larvae have an ocelli or one ocelli, and there is no compound eye. So when we say ocelli, that refers to the term for the simple eye. So in this example, we have here a diagram of the Elodis larva of the family Ceratidae, the Elodis marsh beetles, showing 3 ocelli. And there is no compound eye for the larva. Another property or another feature of the life cycle of the complete metamorphosis is that there is a prolonged resting phase, and that is known as the pupil stage. So the pupil stage is usually considered as the resting phase, although many active changes are occurring internally. The larval tissues and the organs break down entirely, then reorganize into the adult form. After the reorganization is complete, the pupa molts to reveal a mature adult, as seen in this figure showing the life cycle of a fly. In terms of its habitat, the adults and the immature stages occupy different habitats. This is exemplified by mosquitoes. The larvae and the pupae of mosquitoes are present in the water or in the aquatic environment, while the adult is present in the terrestrial environment, as shown in the figure. In terms of the feeding habit of the insects having a complete metamorphosis, the adults and the immature stages feed differently. The adults and the immature stages have different types of mouth parts. Example are the mosquitoes. So mosquitoes have a pursing and sucking mouth parts in the adult. It has a chewing mouth parts in the larvae, and the pupa is considered to be a non-feeding stage. Let's now proceed to the incomplete metamorphosis. So examples of insects of veterinary significance that exhibit incomplete metamorphosis are the ticks, the lice, the mites, and the bugs. The figure shows the typical life cycle of a tick. So the tick life cycle is made up of 3 active stages. We have the presence of the larvae, the nymphs, and the adults. Each stage needs an animal host on which to feed before it can molt to the next stage, or in the case of the adult females, lay eggs. Another example of an insect that exhibits an incomplete metamorphosis are the lice. This diagram shows the typical life cycle of the head louse, Pediculus humanus capitis. In this life cycle, the female louse lays about 50 to 150 eggs during her adult life. From the egg hatches the first nymphal stage, which after 3 molts develop into nymph 2, then nymph 3, and to either a male or a female louse. So this type of life cycle exhibits the presence of the egg, the nymphs, and the adults. We also have another example of an arthropod that exhibit incomplete metamorphosis, and those are the mites. The diagram shows the life cycle of the chicken mite. The other name of the chicken mite is the red poultry mite or the poultry red mite. It belongs to the class Arachnida of the taxon Acari, and the scientific name of this mite is Dermanisus gallinae. So this type of arthropod exhibits an incomplete metamorphosis because it includes the various stages such as the eggs, the larva, the nymphal stages, and the adult. As you can see here, the juvenile stages of the parasite resembles that of the adult. That is why it is called as an incomplete type of metamorphosis. So the egg of the mite will later develop into a larva. The larva is 6-legged. The larva will then later molt into the protonymph, which is 8-legged. The protonymph will feed to the host and will molt to become the diotonymph. And the diotonymph will soon develop, will feed and molt to become the adult mite. This diagram shows the illustration of the chicken mite, Dermanisus gallinae, at various life stages. So the left to right We have here the presence of the six-legged larva. We also have here the eight-legged protonymph, the deutonymph, and the adult. Again, this type of developmental stages is considered to be an incomplete type of metamorphosis. Hence, in the incomplete type of metamorphosis, the life cycle includes the egg, the nymph, and the adult for the lice. And for the ticks, we have the involvement of the egg, the larva, the nymphal stages, and the adult. The adults and the immature stages resemble one another morphologically. The young one is called the larvae or the nymph. So as shown in this figure for the tick life cycle, as you can see here, the larval stages and the nymph of the ticks resembles that of the adult. They only differ in their size. In terms of the habitat, they occupy the same habitat. And for the mites, larvae, or the nymph, and the adult are all seen in the skin of the host. In terms of the feeding habit, those insects that exhibit incomplete metamorphosis have similar feeding habits and mouth parts. Example, in the biting louse, the chewing mouth parts are similar in the larvae, the nymph, and the adult. This diagram shows the mouth parts of the chewing or the biting louse under the order Maliphaga, as of course differentiated from that mouth parts of the sucking lice under Siphunculata. Let's now proceed to the types of the larvae. So the larvae in different orders of insects are known by different names. For example, the larvae of the butterflies and the moths are termed as caterpillars, and those of the orders Diptera and the Coleoptera are termed as maggots and grubs respectively. The larvae are grouped into three types on the basis of the development of the appendages. These three types of insect larvae are namely Oligopod, Polypot, and the Apodus larvae. For the Polypod larva, so in this type, the larvae have 3 pairs of thoracic legs and 2 to 5 pairs of abdominal prolegs. The body is well segmented and is termed as eruciform, meaning it has cylindrical type. The larvae of the order Lepidoptera, which includes the butterflies and the moths, are of polypod type. The diagram shows an example of the polypod larva, the caterpillar. The caterpillar have 5 pairs of prolegs on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and the 10th abdominal segments. So this is exemplified by the larvae of the order Lepidoptera, particularly the butterfly. We also have another type of larva, the oligopod larva. In this type of larva, the body is well segmented and it has 3 pairs of thoracic legs and well-developed cephalic appendages. The prolegs are absent in this type of larva. The grub or the larvae of the rhinoceros beetle is an example of an oligopod larva. The third type of larva are the Apodus larvae. In this type of larvae, the thoracic legs or the abdominal prolegs are absent. It also has poorly sclerotized cuticle. On the basis of the degree of the development of the head, the Apodus larvae can be further grouped into the following three types. This includes the Eusephalus larvae. We also have the Hemisphylus larvae and the Acephalus larvae. When we say Eusephalus larvae, this is a larvae with well-developed head capsule with functional mandibles, maxillae, stemata, and antennae. Example of the insects that exhibit a Eusephalus larvae are the mosquitoes or the wriggler. The wriggler is a term for the larva of the mosquito. We also have the grub of the red palm weevil. So aside from these examples, this type of larvae, the Eusephalus larvae, is a primary condition and recurs in most of the lower Diptera, particularly of the suborder Nematocera. Another type of Apodus larvae is the Hemisphylus larvae. In this type, the larva has reduced head capsule that can be withdrawn within the thorax. This is found in families Tibulidae and Tabanidae. So under the family Tibulidae, we have the crane fly, and under the family Tabanidae, we have the horsefly. This diagram shows the larva of the striped horsefly, Tabanus lignola. The Tabanus lignola is under the suborder Brachycera of the family Tabanidae. Of course, that is under the order Diptera. The head is at the left. The third type of the Apodus larvae is the Acephalus larvae. This type of larva has no head capsule and cephalic appendages. In other references, it is also defined as a larvae with reduced or no head. This type of larvae is also known as the vermiform larvae. So when we say vermiform, these are larvae that are maggot-shaped. That is, circular in cross-section and tapering to a point, and they do not possess legs. Example of the Acephalus larvae are the maggots of the housefly. So this illustrates the maggot or the larva of the housefly. Let's now proceed to the types of pupa. The pupa is defined as the resting and the inactive stage in all holometabolous insects. So during this stage, the insect is incapable of feeding and is considered to be quiescent. During the transitional stage, the larval characters are destroyed and new adult characters are created. There are three main types of pupa. We have the obtect, exarate, and the coarctate. For the obtect type of pupa, so in this type of pupa, the antenna, the wing pads, the legs, and other appendages are fused to the body. And many obtect pupae, often protected by cocoon, constructed using various materials. So this is exemplified by moods. The diagram shows the moth pupa removed from the cocoon. So when we say cocoon, that is a silky case spun by the larvae of many insects for protection in the pupal stage. So an example of an obtect pupa is the Chrysalis. The Chrysalis is the naked obtect pupa of the butterfly. In terms of its structure, it is angular and attractively colored. And the pupa is attached to the substratum by hooks present at the terminal end of the abdomen called the cremaster. The middle part of the chrysalis is attached to the substratum by two strong silken threads called the girdle. Another type of obtect pupa is the tumbler. The tumbler is the pupa of the mosquito. It is an obtect type pupa. In terms of its structure, it is comma-shaped with rudimentary appendages. The breathing trumpets are present in the cephalic end, and the anal paddles are present at the end of the abdomen. The abdomen is capable of jerky movements which are produced by the anal paddles, and the pupa is considered to be very active. Another type of pupa is the Xray pupa. So in this type of pupa, the antenna, the wing pads, the legs, and other appendages are free, and they are not glued to the body. These are exemplified by the rhinoceros beetle, the bees, and the ants. All the oligopod larvae will turn into Xray pupae, and the pupa of this particular type of insects are considered to be soft and pale. So the diagram shows the pupa of the ants. We also have here the pupa of the bees. We also have the coarctate pupa. So the pupal case in this type is barrel shaped, as shown in this figure. It is smooth with no apparent appendages. The last larval skin is changed into case containing the Xray pupa. The hardened dark brown pupal case is called as the puparium, and it is considered to be air and waterproof. This is exemplified by the fly pupa or the true flies. The coarctate pupa is like the Xray but covered with hardened cuticle, that is known as the puparium. And this is exhibited by some of the insects under the order Diptera.